Hi, my name is Helge Maus from pixeltrain. In this tutorial, I want to talk with you about a free plugin for Adobe After Effects, Premiere and Photoshop with the name ProEXR. The background to this tutorial is that I work as a trainer for the visual effects industry. And OpenEXR is one of the industry standards and so the backbone as a file format for many of the visual effects tools. All the renderers are able to output EXR, and OpenEXR is a container format where I can store 32-bit informations of my images, and also I can store all my render elements or layers inside of one file because OpenEXR is able to store up to 1024 channels. The only problem with the EXR file format is if I have a client on the other side who uses the Adobe world, for example Photoshop or After Effects, because if they open or try to open in EXR, they normally only see the first 4 channels. So they see, for example, RGBA, and also they only can work then with the image itself. And so they tend normally to output every pass as a single file, which means you have a whole bunch of files later after you've rendered out, for example, an animation. So ProEXR helps you with that. A part of ProEXR, better to say the old version, was in a part added to Adobe After Effects by Adobe itself. So if you ever worked with the plugin Extractor under the 3D channels, you have worked with ProEXR, but only with a small part of that. Now ProEXR 2.0 is officially released. Before we had the chance to download it on GitHub, and now it's officially on the website of F-Nord. And in this new version here, we have not only the new version of ProEXR, we also have now the chance to work with Cryptomatte inside of Adobe After Effects. So in this tutorial, I want to show you how to install this plugin and how to use it. And in the next tutorial, I want to talk a little bit about Cryptomatte and how to use Cryptomatte inside of After Effects. So the first thing you have to do is you have to download ProEXR. You see here on this web page, there's a Mac and a Windows version. You can read a little bit about what this cool plugin is able to do. And if you open up your package, you see a whole bunch of folders here and the manual, really important. And you see you can now add this plugin to After Effects, Nuke, Photoshop, and Premiere Pro. In this tutorial, I only talk about After Effects, so I dive into that. And here you see a whole bunch of After Effects plugins now. The first step is you have to install these plugins inside of your After Effects. I go into my application folder of Adobe After Effects. I'm on a Mac here, so it's really fast to do that. Here you select your icon, right mouse button, click, and then you can tell the system, show this application inside of my Finder, and I jump here to the application folder, and here's the plugins folder of After Effects. I took all the plugins which are for my version CC 2019, so not the CS6 part, and brought them into an own folder here. Before you now start your After Effects, you have to make sure that we don't have a plugin conflict. Like I told you, the Identifier plugin, for example, and the file format OpenEXR here was used by Adobe in an older version also for Adobe After Effects. So they are part of your standard installation. To avoid a conflict, you have to deactivate them. The easiest way I do is I go here into Format, for example, and there normally is the OpenEXR format which ships with the Adobe installation, and I zipped it here, you see it like that, and remove the original one. So if I want to ever go back, you can unzip it here and everything is fine again. And the identifier is normally here under Effects. So this folder here is a little bit longer, but it's sorted here. And so if you go here, here's the Identifier plugin which ships with After Effects. I also zipped it and removed the original one. And so now my After Effects in the next restart is only using these OpenEXR 2.0 plugins here. I've started After Effects. Here it is. And now I first want to show you how to work with the Extractor. So for this, I open here an EXR file, which I've rendered out of ProRender. And I bring it in here into my project, and we make a composition out of that. Here we are. It's not spectacular, but it demonstrates the workflow. We only see now the first 4 channels. So you see RGB, and we have here an alpha channel. But if I take a look here now, for example, into Cinema 4D and my render settings here, I use ProRender for this, and here under multipasses in other render it's named AOVs, for example, or render elements. You see I have activated here some passes, direct and indirect illumination, for example, world coordinates as a world position pass, and the normals, a little bit of depth and object IDs. That's it. And everything was collected now inside of this EXR, but like I've said, you only see the first 4 channels. So the normal workflow you can do without the plugin, you select now the layer here, which you have added, and then you go to the effects. Under 3D channels, you have here now the extractor. And if you add this effect, you can now dive into the channels. You see here inside of the extractor, there's the channel info, and there is the message clicked for dialog. This is something I want to do here. And then you see here the extractor interface. Here are all the layers. Normally channels are structured as layers. So if you think to Photoshop, for example, a normal Photoshop layer is a compound between RGB and maybe an alpha channel if you have an alpha on your layer. So all the channels normally live in layers. And if you want, you can open up the layers here and you see the German names of my render layers, which I defined in my renderer. Here, for example, is the indirect illumination, the direct illumination, shading, normals, and so on. If you select something here, for example, I want to see the direct illumination, you see that the mapping here is now done automatically by the plugin. So in the red, green, and blue output of this layer, we see in the moment the direct illumination, red channel, and green in the green, and blue in the blue. If you want, you also can output an alpha, or you copy it. And if you click now onto OK, you now only see the direct illumination. It's a little bit dark in the moment, and the reason for this is that After Effects runs in the moment color management, and this plugin really makes a one-to-one mapping of the pixel data. So you see here directly that this image is too dark. If you want, you can now convert the colors if you like. So if you go here into your effects, you have inside of After Effects a color profile converter. And if you take this, you can tell here the input profile. For example, I work with the profile sRGB or Rec 709. And then you click here, linearize input profile, and then you see it looks absolutely correct. So we brought it now to my working space of After Effects. So if this is what you want and need. But the tedious process is now that if you want now the next, for the example, the indirect, you have to duplicate this layer here, Command D, and then you have to go here into this set again and say, oh, this time I want to have the indirect illumination, and this is the indirect illumination, and so on. So you make now here a stack, and afterwards you go here into your blend modes and say, yeah, I want to add these two now together. So if you now click this here, you see this is direct and indirect now combined, and so on. So if you have many layers for your image, this here is a really tedious process. And at this point here, the ProEXR implementation really helps. So let's remove here now this Compo here again. And we are again in our EXR here. And instead of making everything by ourselves, you only have to select the EXR here, go to the File menu, and now with the new version ProEXR 2.0, you have now here the new Create ProEXR Layer Comps item. And if you click this, it takes a really short while and you get a whole structure here now presented, which are the extracted layers of the EXR and also a really nice helper. So if you take now a look here, here we have the layers, for example, direct, indirect, material, and so on. And if I open up now, for example, direct here and indirect, we see exactly the thing we have done before by hand. And if you want, we can now add again here our effect, our color profile converter. So I work here, for example, Rec 709. I want to have this linear, and now I copy this effect here, and if I like, I can also paste it here. And if you now go back here to your project window and you made your adjustments here, if you like, but these are the only two color infos which I have here, I can go here to the assemble. And if you go to the assemble, you see we have a whole stack here now of all our layers. And the interesting part is inside of your plugin folder, there's a text file where you also can write standard names into that so that the mapping works. Really cool thing. But what I want to show you here is I deactivate all these layers here so that we have a stack here of direct and indirect. And if you now go here to this layer and I add now this indirect, you see the result in seconds without making all the work here by myself. Sometimes it's really useful to see or to take a look into an EXR to understand what's inside. And for this, we also have here a contact sheet compo. And if you double click this here, you see that now this plugin has built me a contact sheet. And this seems to be the RGBA. And the cool thing is, if you click here, you see the layer here is highlighted. Okay, this is the RGBA source, but I'm wondering what is that here? You can click here and you see, this is the object ID, and later you can use that. This is also a good thing to have the information what's inside the EXR and how to use it. That's only a part of the whole feature set of OpenEXR 2.0. You also are able now to save out EXR with layers, and you can install the plugins also in Photoshop, in Premiere Pro, and you can read a little bit more about the functions here on the website and in the manual. But that's enough for this tutorial. We see each other in the next tutorial if you want to see how to work with Cryptomatte inside of Adobe After Effects. My name is Helge Maus from pixeltrain. Have fun.